So we've talked about listening and language. When I was reflecting on that, I thought it was worth diving into listening and meaning. I told an example where a group was using a technical term, the flirty-girdle. I didn't know what flirty-girdle meant, but it didn't matter. I could repeat that back to the group. And it got me thinking about how groups construct meaning and maybe how meaning sits in social context and culture. What do you think, Svenari?
I think it comes to mind situations where people have constructed a discussion where they think they disagree with each other, but actually they're talking about the same thing, but they haven't grasped the meaning. There might be something in the culture that induces this, but I've been in those kind of situations.
I hope my mum doesn't watch this, but I was as a kid, I'd argue with my mum. And my mum would say, we should do this thing. And I'd say, no, we should do this thing. And mum would say, no, this thing we have to do. And I'd say, absolutely not. That's the thing we need to do. And it would take an hour. And then actually we both wanted to do precisely the same thing. But there was something in the kind of patterns of behavior that we'd learned to always argue about that. And sometimes as a facilitator, we've got a gift that we can ask that question, what do you mean by this thing? That sounds a little bit like that thing. How is it different from that thing? And use those kind of questioning skills to pull it out. And I think that's how we can use listening to help understand the meaning in people's.
It sounds very basic. Like is that really necessary? But sometimes it really is. And a cultural aspect could be, there would be differences to just a simple act of nodding, for instance. It could mean different things. And if we don't comprehend that, we're off maybe on the wrong track.
Yes, gestures can get you into all sorts of trouble if you make the wrong gesture that might mean something culturally different. Here's another cultural difference, Fenari. Not just kind of national family culture, but organizational culture hierarchically. Sometimes the most senior people are the hardest to gently suggest they may have missed the point on something. And it can be very challenging as a facilitator to do that. And I know I've had to raise that, and then I have to remind myself of my role, that if the group doesn't want to take that, the group doesn't want to take that. It's up to them to construct the meaning, not me. I have to give them the opportunity to create their meaning. And if they choose not to, well, then maybe I've left some groundwork where they'll be able to get around to it another time.
And some of this sits with social contexts. Some of this different meanings or cultural situations is that you can prepare for, because you know there would be some of that in that group, something you need to discover as you go.
I think these reflections are the job of a facilitator. Being aware of those cultural contexts, naming them, and helping make that implicit explicit so that a group can navigate change is our job.